he's charged with attempted grand larceny, shooting with intent to kill, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, 3 counts.
We're concerned over how much cocaine we do seize or how much drugs we seize at the time of an arrest situation or an indictment like this, but the biggest factor is that we're going after the organizations rather than just the individual street dealers. The people named in this indictment were all either charged with conspiracy or main counts of bringing mainly cocaine into the Oklahoma City area and distributing it in this area.
On the public.
In a late afternoon news conference, U.S. Attorney Bill Price laid to rest the Denman controversy once and for all. The feds had tried twice, unsuccessfully, to prosecute the state representative on extortion charges. Instead of taking him to court again, the prosecution offered a deal: stay out of state politics, and the case is dropped.
The evidence presented at the trial of this case, it involved extortion of a number of different types. I think that our primary concern was that a person that was doing those kind of activities should not continue to serve in public office in the state of Oklahoma.
Don Denman maintained to the end the extortion rap was a political vendetta.
I was to the point where I'd become so disgusted with these sort of things arising for purely political reasons that I doubt that I would have sought re-election under any circumstance. I think, I hope that the people of Oklahoma, when Bill Price makes whatever race it is that he's gearing up for, remember what sort of a person he is. And I can assure you that I will be there to remind them.
Denman said his resignation is not an admission of guilt. He said he is simply out of resources and could not afford a third trial. The charges will be officially dropped July 12th, after the deadline is passed for filing for political office. Kevin Ogle, News 4.
We have a very large fat vessel here. It's not tapering like this one is and giving off branches. It just stops. You can see that all of these little tiny branches are filled, and yet this one is completely blocked.
Welfare Department investigators have forwarded 7 child abuse complaints to Oklahoma.
Start at 4609 North Penn, 4609 North Penn, Harvey Wayne. Sorry, 11 and 9, 43.
Later tonight, these telephones will be manned by volunteers with Pennies for Pride. From now until the June 26 special election, this will be campaign headquarters for those supporting a proposed 1-cent sales tax hike. City leaders say the additional sales tax money is needed to repair streets, water, and sewer lines. Supporters of the tax increase say, as always, their biggest task will be to inform voters.
We want the people to know what this tax increase will mean to them, and we want them to know what it will mean if it fails, too. 40% of the revenue from this tax increase will come from people outside of Oklahoma City. This is a 5-year moratorium on it. At the end of 5 years, the tax will cease unless the people vote it back in. It cannot be extended by a vote of the City Council. It has to be by a vote of the people.
The Oklahoma City Treasurer's Office is prepared for the failure or passage of the tax hike, since this office handles all city funds. Pennies for Pride volunteers hope after the election, cashiers will be handling a lot more money for capital improvements. Ed Stewart, News 4.
Welfare Department investigators have forwarded 7 child abuse complaints to Oklahoma district attorneys. One of the most shocking investigations centered around this former Bethany Family Daycare Center run by Olga Lugo. Investigators reportedly discovered that 2 young boys at the center contracted anal gonorrhea. Welfare workers have also completed their investigation of child molestation complaints leveled against a bus driver at the Mount Carmel Baptist Church Daycare Center. Welfare officials confirmed that most of the abuse allegations have been substantiated. Those officials are urging parents to get involved in their child's care.
Parental involvement in checking out the daycare, visiting the facility, discussing with the operator about their program. And if parents are not allowed to visit inside the facility or not wanted or obviously not wanted around, they shouldn't be leaving their children there. They should look for the license.
The State Welfare Department headquarters normally gets about 100 child abuse complaints against daycare facilities each year. The recent rash of complaints doesn't necessarily mean that more children are being abused in daycare centers. It may mean that parents are doing a better job of listening to their children's complaints. Scott Wallace, News 4 at the State Welfare Department.
This is Arcadia, population about 300, and it covers only 1 square mile in northeast Oklahoma County. At issue is whether Arcadia is an incorporated city. The entire community is now surrounded by Edmond, and unless the courts intervene, on July 4th, Arcadia will become part of Edmond, despite the objections of some Arcadians. City leaders in Edmond say the annexation of Arcadia is to protect their investment in what will one day be Lake Arcadia.
The fact of law is that they are not a town. They're not an incorporated town. Our city attorney researched that very thoroughly. We've got a large investment in a lake out there, $100 million, in fact, through the federal government and the city, splitting it 50-50. And we feel like that we need to control the development that occurs in that area to protect the aesthetics and everything else of the lake area.
I feel that in the United States, the citizens of the town should control what goes on in the town. We are under the auspices of the county, and the county has codes and zoning regulations which we will very easily go under. I think it is a political move and a profit-oriented move to make Arcadia part of a resort area for Edmond in regards to Lake Arcadia, which is named after our town. It's not Lake Edmond, it's Lake Arcadia, and we hope to remain that way.
Morrell contends there are records showing Arcadia was incorporated back in 1917. The Lake Arcadia project is scheduled for completion in 1987, and that's how long opponents of the annexation say they will fight to make sure Arcadia remains Arcadia. Ed Stewart, News 4.
They notified us that it was a mistake, the wrong person had been let out, and we have been searching for her along with the Sheriff's Department all the rest of the afternoon and, of course, this evening. At approximately 8 o'clock this evening, Detective Garrick and Detective Garner apprehended her, took her into custody at 6109 Denver.
And it makes it easier for us administratively to get our money. Then if they fail to do that, we notify the insurance commissioner, who then takes punitive action against them and pays us their escrow money from their escrow account that he has pledged to him. They have to then replace that anyway. It costs them the same amount of money, but it puts them in jeopardy with their licensing. If it goes as far as the insurance commissioner, they can settle the whole thing right here with us if they'll do it.
I did receive a phone call and have talked with as many people as possible, and while I am here, if you have any other appointment, they given that right. Today, our reform committee that is chaired by, we need some changes in the statutes concerning these type of situations. I plan to have the House of Representatives work in this area during the interim and make some recommendations through the proper committees and so forth, recommendations in the statutes that would help to correct the type problem that we have had.
The temperature is rising at the 1984 World's Fair in New Orleans, and so are the bills that have to be paid. Louisiana lawmakers are considering loaning the fair $15 million to ward off some of the bill collectors.
Welcome to the fair. Here's your stuff. You have a nice time.
The problem is attendance. This year's World's Fair was supposed to attract 70,000 people a day, but only about 40,000 a day have been going through the turnstiles. With Oklahoma City planning a World's Fair in 1989, how can local planners be sure the same thing won't happen in 5 years?
It is true. New Orleans is a prime destination in the United States. Oklahoma City has the same number of people, but we are an en route city. We have these major and gorgeous highways and interstates that go through here, and approximately the same number of people who go to New Orleans go through Oklahoma City. What I'm saying is that the people are there. It takes selling to stop them.
Thompson says there are other important differences when comparing New Orleans with Oklahoma City. It costs $350 million to put the fair on in Louisiana. The price tag for Oklahoma is estimated at $73 million. In the 1984 World's Fair started off $62 million in debt. Oklahoma City planners say they only expect an $8 million shortfall, which is easier to recover. Thompson adds no matter how hard times may get, no money will ever be asked of the state or city to ease the financial burden.
We have a trouble unknown at 1715 North Kentucky.
We're going to take the cuts in non-line positions as far as we can. And how that will affect the department, it probably won't be an effect that the general citizen will notice, because we'll just absorb it internally. Functions such as, I think there are like 5 traffic positions that will be done away with. There is a assistant police chief position that will be eliminated.
In Judge Joe Cannon's courtroom, convicted murderer Robyn LeRoy Parks took the stand to testify that public defender Bob Ravitz was incompetent in handling his appeals. Parks wanted certain information included in his appeal, information Ravitz thought was, quote, totally frivolous. Parks fired Ravitz as his attorney and wanted another chance with the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals to stay his execution.
Mr. Parks, your main complaint is that I didn't file issues for you. Is that correct?
My main complaint was that you never considered working along with me on my case, and you more or less just took the case, presented the way you felt it should be presented, irregardless of any request that I made.
But when Ravitz took the stand on his own behalf, he said he represented Parks well and at no time was remiss in his duties to defend him.
I kept current on all my death penalty research. I attended a couple of death penalty conferences, some using my own money to attend. I was in contact with organizations that do nothing but death penalty litigation to try to stay abreast of all the latest cases. But I wanted to make sure all his constitutional rights were protected. That's what I felt I did by virtue of every paper I filed. I probably have filed, counting motions for stays of execution, almost 1,000 pages for Mr. Parks over the last 6.5 years.
At the conclusion of the hearing, Judge Cannon said he believed Parks had received a fair trial and that Parks was using the firing of Ravitz as a tactic to delay his execution. Parks was then handcuffed and on his way back to death row in McAllister. His execution is set for July 10th. Bella Shaw, News 4, at the county courthouse.
Hospitals are paying for car seats that they give to their newborn children out of their vending machine funds. You know, people are coming up with a lot of really creative ways to get children in car seats. And there have been probably over 4,000 or 5,000 infants in car seats this year that would not have been there if the law hadn't passed and if the loaner programs hadn't sprung up as they have.
Rise.
This is a commission policy decision, and when that is made, then the administrative people will move toward it with all due dispatch.
I found approximately 3,000 photographs, various of nude individuals ranging in age from possibly 12, 13 years old to late 30s, maybe early 40s. Various and sundry other sexual artifacts and numerous films for VCRs, etc.
Produced in Oklahoma goes to Texas and Missouri for production of electricity. Found that the people, if this state is to have a future, we must develop the kind of leadership and program that permits diversification of our industrial base. If we're to do that, we must have responsible utility regulation, because in order for an industry to come to this state and locate in any community, you must have the utility capacity to meet the needs of that industry the day it arrives.
Are in the best public interest. Agency to study. We at the Department of Transportation believe that the construction of a 6-lane control of access facility is warranted, and its construction would be in the best public interest.
For 6 years, Tony Burns's job has been to prosecute criminals in Stevens, Jefferson, Caddo, and Grady counties. Now Burns is finding himself on the opposite side of the courtroom. The DA's problems stem from a visit to this former Southwest Oklahoma City prostitution house in November of 1982. During that visit, the house's self-proclaimed madam and undercover narcotics agents secretly recorded conversations with Burns. Former Madam Buffy Johnson testified during the preliminary hearing that Burns smoked marijuana, gambled, used her prostitutes, and offered to help her set up a prostitution house in Duncan. The defense attorneys tried to use those same secret tapes to blunt the state's case. During defense cross-examination, Johnson admitted that the plan to open a prostitution house in Duncan was her own idea, not Burns's. The state witness also admitted she suggested that the DA shoot craps. Tony Burns did not make any comments during his preliminary hearing, but in the past, he has accused Oklahoma County DA Bob Macy of playing politics with the charges. And in fact, defense attorneys have subpoenaed the former head of the State Narcotics Bureau to try to prove that point. Scott Wallace, News 4 at the Oklahoma County Courthouse.
If this is a hazardous material they're releasing into the alleyway, that really shouldn't be done. It is a small amount that I see here, but nevertheless, if it is a hazardous material, it shouldn't be released in this manner.
Our back line on the roof right up there, which would, you know.
We're just going to have a celebration, and Susan's going to put on a concert.
Okay. Every song is dedicated to you. And the reason for the concert is not just to come home and sing a few songs, but the reason for the concert is to make a community effort to raise money so Kimberly can have her operation.
I see.
Keeping the image alive, it's the hope of the family of missing children, that someone may see a face, remember a poster, but it takes skills that some families don't have. What is it like to be an unwed mother, unemployed, searching for a missing child?
I really don't think it can get any worse. I mean, it's bad enough not knowing, but then when you can't get help from people that's out there.
Ora Owens, mother of 3, is searching for a missing child, 5-year-old Mitchell Owens.
Mitchell Owens was last seen February 3rd, 1983, here in his family's Menlo Park apartment. Mitchell's mom, Ora Owens, says an abductor entered the apartment through this window.
I remember him wrestling with me. I remember him having his knee in the back, in the center of my back. And I just remember him reaching for something. And that's it. I looked over and my baby was standing up there. So I started screaming for him to go back. And I woke up a couple of days later in the hospital.
Ora Owens was unconscious. It took a week for the police to get a reliable description of a suspect.
He said at the time that since I was partially brain damaged from lack of oxygen so long, the description might not be accurate. But they didn't even bother to follow it up or find out.
So what have they been doing in the meantime?
Sitting on that.
The police deny it. At the time of the abduction, they did what they could. They searched the area. They hired psychics, hypnotists. No leads. In a year's time, there's been little progress. Then a family of another Bay Area boy lent a hand. Kevin Collins was getting attention, locally and nationally. He's still missing, but his family was so adept at gaining attention, it formed a foundation to help other cases.
And I felt that if we had
the press up and got them excited, or at least enough to get the story out, that the people in her area would be compassionate enough to give her a hand.
After Mitchell had been missing 14 months, Ora Owens held a news conference. For the first time, posters went up in an organized way. The pressure forced the police to admit that it never got around to placing Mitchell's name in the FBI National Crime Computer after 14 months of investigation. The result? There were more new leads for Mitchell than ever. Unfortunately, none led to a recovery. When the attention died, so did the leads, the volunteers. In Ora Owens' mind, so did the compassion. Ora Owens now feels little is being done for Mitchell to keep the hope alive. The police rarely call her. She's lost a son. Now she's losing time.
I just don't know what else to do anymore. All I'm asking is just they help us. I want my baby back.
Emil Guillermo in Menlo Park, California for NBC News.